Let me start with the Communications Minister, Michelle Rowland. It does look like it's going to be a tough night for the Yes campaign and for the Albanese government.
Australians have been given an opportunity to do something different here. And as we took to the election a commitment to have this referendum in our first term, we are honouring that commitment. Now, Australians always get it right. We will accept whatever decision the Australian people make, but I will say this. This has been an opportunity to give recognition to First Nations Australians, the recognition that they have asked for, the consultative process that they have asked to be enshrined in our Constitution. And again, we can have more of the same or we can do something different. And that's what this referendum has been about. And I do want to say from the outset, thank you to all the volunteers who have been on the ground throughout this long campaign, not only this year, but for many, many years since this was originally announced and even prior to that. We will know soon enough what the Australian people have decided, but until then, this is important to recognise that closing the gap remains a key focus of the Albanese government.
Peta Credlin, to you, if the results do go as we expect, as the polls suggest, what have been the key moments, the key issues around such a result?
Well, if the voice is rejected, I think it'll be the right decision to a question that should never have been asked. The only thing that has ever really been on the table is recognition. This is not recognition. I know there'll be different views around this table, like there is different views in the community, but I think the lack of leadership from the Prime Minister to ventilate in detail what the voice is, to run an orthodox referendum process. There was no constitutional convention. There was no even framework legislation. Father Frank Brennan, a very strong Yes advocate, pointed that out recently. I mean, that sort of stuff should have been on the table for people to see the architecture of what they would inherit come tomorrow if this had got up. Now, I agree with Michelle Rowland. The Australian people get it right. And I think the difficulty for the PM and for some on the front bench tomorrow will be, if it is defeated, to take the learnings and the response from the Australian people to heart, to take that on, but not walk away from Aboriginal people. Australians have got a lot of goodwill. They just rejected this way forward.
A lot of Indigenous Australians, Anthony Dillon, have rejected it, including yourself. Anthony, tell me, you've said it's because one of the reasons is there's not enough information. Do you agree with Peta Credlin on that front?
I certainly do, and more fundamentally, myself and all other Aboriginal people, we have voices already. So, you know, it seems a little bit redundant that we've got this other thing being added on top of everything else when we already have voices.
Sean Gordon, when you look at the No campaign and the prominent, Jacinta Price, Nampijinpa Price, Senator Price has been so powerful and effective as an advocate. To see the Indigenous community divided, how damaging has it been to the Yes campaign?
Look, I think first we've got to step back to where this started. This started in 2007 with John Howard leading into the election. It's been picked up by every Prime Minister since leading up to this day. And so it's been a Conservative-driven initiative from that point on. I was at Kirribilli in 2014 when Tony Abbott met with Indigenous leaders across the country, and we're committed to this process. I've been a part of this now for more than a decade, advocating for Indigenous constitutional recognition. And I think going to Peter's point is it's important that if you're going to recognise a group of people, is it then only right that you ask them how they want to be recognised? And that's what Indigenous people put forward in the Uluru Statement. I think in regards to Indigenous people, our issues aren't going to go away. Our challenges aren't going to go away. The country then needs to think about how do we continue to address that. What I'm most proud of in this whole process, and there's been some real positives that come out of this, but we've reached into the homes of everyday Australians, into their kitchens, into their lounge rooms, into their backyards, and forced the Australian people to have a conversation about the First Peoples of this country and the disparity gaps that exist. That's got to count for something. Regardless of the outcome, we've forced a conversation that this country has not been willing to have with the First Peoples of this country.